Jamie the Crafty DIY Guy. Welcome to my channel.
Now, what I love best about these projects are how versatile they are. They will complement almost any decor style you have in your home, including industrial, modern farmhouse, or transitional. To customize these, all you have to do is paint them to fit your own decor style, and you'll have some affordable, chic decor pieces that look high-end without breaking the budget.
And of course, before I get started, I have to say thank you to all of my long-term subscribers. You know, I call you guys my OGs. That just means original gangster, old-time friends, the old gang. It has a lot of different meanings, but it's definitely a meaning of love. You guys, I'm so happy for all of our friendships and getting to know you guys over the past few years. It's really been incredible. Also, if you're brand new to the channel, welcome, of course. Hopefully you will become an OG someday. And then, of course, if YouTube happened to recommend this video to you, thank you, YouTube. And let's get started.
All right, everyone, and for project number 1, I am going to be using a package of these foam stars that I picked up at Pop Shelf. You can usually find these also at Dollar General and something similar at Dollar Tree. You're only going to need 2 of them, and you want to do 2 that are the same size. I also grabbed one of these over-the-door coat hangers in black. If you can't find one in black, you could certainly spray paint it black, but this one's going to work out perfectly. So the first thing I did was take my stars out, and I grabbed 2 that were the exact same size. These are kind of the medium out of the 3 different sizes that are in this bag, so those are the ones I am going to use for this DIY. Because these stars are kind of 3-dimensional, I do want to have a nice flat surface for these to be able to glue to that coat hanger. So I'm just going to take a little saw here that I grabbed from my toolbox. I almost said my tool belt. And I'm just going to shave off the side of the star here just a little bit, just so I have a nice flat surface for this to stick to. The next thing I'm going to do is take some Mod Podge and I'm going to pour it in my tray here. And I am going to paint both sides of these styrofoam stars with the Mod Podge. Sometimes paint will break down styrofoam. I know for sure spray paint will. And with this one, I'm going to be using a combination of some acrylic paint. I'm going to be using some antiquing wax and some chalk paint. So I want to make sure that these stars are not going to fall apart. I said follow apart. Isn't that hilarious? So after I've given both of my stars 2 coats of Mod Podge, then it is time to start working on the first part of the paint. Then I'm going to use my Craft Smart acrylic paint, and I'm going to give each one of my stars 2 coats of paint on both sides. Now, once the paint had dried on those stars, I loved the way they looked, but it was time to start giving them kind of a bronzy wood finish. So I'm going to take some antiquing wax and this chip brush, and admittedly, I did go a little heavy on this very first star, but I was able to kind of correct it. I would probably do more of a dry brush technique, I would think, than doing something quite as heavy as this. Typically with antiquing wax, I will go very, very heavy when I use this, but with this project, a lighter hand would have definitely done better. Now, as you can see, as I'm using that chipper brush, it is kind of pulling and putting some texture on that star, which I really, really like. Now, this is kind of how I would have preferred, I think, to have start off that first star. And as you can see, it almost gives it a wood grain kind of a look. And obviously the styrofoam has some texture in it as well. And all I'm going to do is just continue to build up my layers of paint using the antiquing wax, and then going in with some black chalk paint, and then adding some white back into it, and then just literally building upon my layers and layers and layers until I have the color that I like. After everything dried, then I took my hot glue gun out and I added a generous amount of hot glue right to the top of my over-the-door coat rack. I took my styrofoam stars and that flat area that I had carved out earlier and just glued those down directly on top of that metal like so. When everything dried, I had a fantastic over-the-door coat rack that I loved so much that had a very cool modern industrial look. The next thing I'm going to be doing is making a wood and gemstone garland with a rope tassel on the end of it. I found these citrine beads that are actually rough cut raw, genuine citrine beads. They look like this. They come on a strand kind of like this on Amazon, and I loved these so much. And I went ahead and just cut the beads that you see on my mat there off of this strand. And again, super fun. My brown beads that you see here, they're a dark Kona color, and these are actually from Michaels. I have 4 different sizes here, and then this is just a piece of twine that I had that was also from Michaels. You could certainly use any kind of twine or thread or anything that you have. I took some of the Dollar Tree black nylon rope and just kind of created a tassel by wrapping this around my pencil, kind of like you see here, and then just tying it off. And I loved the way that this looked. It was pretty cool for me to be able just to keep everything in place. And then I'll show you a little trick that I learned here. So I'm going to take, and unfortunately I'm doing it off camera there, but I took a little bit of glue. I put it on the end of my pencil here, and then I'm going to take my twine or my thread here, and I am going to glue it to that pencil kind of like so. It's on low temperature, so don't worry, I didn't burn my hands, even though my hands are really, really dirty from doing painting earlier. And then I'm going to pull my pencil through, and look at that. My tassel is threaded. All I have to do is just cut this now off of the end of the pencil, and I've got that thread all ready to go. Now I did take my twine and I knotted it together at the top of that tassel, and then I took my 2 ends and just cut them off now. Now I'm going to pick a citrine bead that already has those holes threaded through it, and I'm going to take my twine and just thread it through, bringing that citrine bead really, really close to the top of that tassel. But to help kind of thread these along, I am going to add some hot glue on the end of my thread, and that will help this beading or this threading process of my citrine. As you can see with my dirty fingers from painting earlier, it does go through, and then I can pull that all the way down to the end there and just thread my citrine bead kind of like so. So after I double threaded that one citrine bead, then I separated my strings again, and so I had 2 different threads. Hopefully that's making sense. I think it'll make sense once you see how everything starts to come together. Now I'm going to pick the right stone and figure out kind of what 2 are about the same size, and then I'm going to thread one stone through on one side of the thread. And then I'm going to take the other stone and do it with the other side of the thread. That way, those 3 stones are all kind of joined together. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a minute once everything is done. Also, just a little tip for you, whenever you're using anything, any kind of threading like this, it always helps to put a little bit of tape, or in my case, I'm using actually a little bit of hot glue on the ends of your thread, and then it will make threading a lot easier. So now that I've got those 3 stones, I think you can kind of see where I'm going here. And now I'm just going to create a pattern as I'm starting to thread my stones and my wood beads onto each one of my pieces here. And then when I had the desired length, I went ahead and just tied everything in a double knot at the end of my strand, joining everything together to create this amazing looking garland. I really love the way this wood and gemstone garland looks. I absolutely love how I doubled it up here and just put it around the neck of my vase. Another thing you can do with it is simply just use it to accent your tray. This would be fantastic on a tiered tray or on a coffee table tray like I have styled here. Again, super versatile, very, very earthy, and I love the way this looks. And for my next project, I'm going to be using some of these party favor blocks that you can find in the birthday party section at your local Dollar Tree. I also grabbed a package of these mini kind of appetizer plates. There's 12 of them to a package. You can use any of the extras for paint. So the first thing we did was take all of our party blocks. I took all 3 packages and I'm going to open them up and start building my blocks or my towers with them. To do that, all I'm going to do is start gluing them together. You could certainly glue these in the color blocks if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter because you're going to end up spray painting them. So I did one tower that was the tallest, and then I did a medium-sized tower, and then I did a small tower. And the great thing about these blocks is that they do open. That's, I guess, the party favor part of them, but the bad part of that for this project is that you will have to glue them shut as well. So go ahead and add some glue to the front where the kind of snaps are, and then to the tops to glue them into your individual stacks. And once you have everything glued and stacked on top of each other, it is time to add your little appetizer plates to the top. Once the glue dried, I took everything outside and gave it 2 coats of my black spray paint. I'm actually using a flat black versus a gloss or even a matte finish. This is totally your own preference, whichever you think is best. You could even spray paint these a lighter color or even a very cool metallic color, and I think they would be equally amazing. Once everything was dried, I took them inside and added some tea light candles, and this is what they look like. I love the way these look. They are definitely a focal point on my coffee table tray, and they give a very cool industrial modern vibe that I'm really, really into lately. And for my last project, we're going to be using 4 of these 5x7 Dollar Tree frames. I've already taken the glass out of them because that's actually what we're going to be using. You can put the frame part aside and save that. Also, I have these 5-inch wood squares, and that's important. You want to get a wood square that's going to be the same size as your glass, kind of like you see here. So go ahead and make sure whatever size wood that you're going to be using is the same size as the glass from the frames that you'll be using. I grabbed these wood slices from, or these wood pieces from Amazon, and I will link them in the description box below. I'm going to take a ruler here and I'm just going to draw a line, and then I'm going to take an X-Acto knife or this is the Dollar Tree version of that, and I'm just going to score my wood here 3 or 4 times with this X-Acto knife. If you have something that's a little heavy duty-er, then that would probably be better than what I was using here. I just went nice and slow. And again, I think I did this 3 or 4 times, kind of right along that line that I had just drawn. I probably could have even just kept the ruler there and just gone back and forth against that edge with that. But I just took my time. And then if you bend this, it will pop, as you will see here. And you may have to take some scissors and just kind of trim it up a little bit. I did that and it was perfectly fine. I did this to 4 pieces of wood, and I used the one that I'm trimming up here actually as my template. That way I had 4 pieces that exactly matched each other. So hopefully that makes sense. The next thing I'm going to do is take my 4 pieces of wood and rub them down with some antiquing wax. I'm using this chip brush, and I'm just going to give everything a good coating on both sides. And then I am going to take my rag and just wipe away any of the excess, making sure that I have 4 pieces that are beautifully stained with my antiquing wax. The next thing I'm going to do is take my 2 pieces of wood and I am going to glue them onto my glass. So for the first 2 pieces, I'm actually going to glue them together kind of like so. That way I have 2 pieces of glass with 2 pieces of wood going in the same direction. And then I am going to do the same with the bottom 2 pieces of glass, but they're going to go in the opposite direction, as you see here. So hopefully that is making sense. That way, when I glue everything together, all of my pieces are going to match up. Once everything was dry, it was time to start assembling my box. The first thing I'm going to do is add some hot glue onto the glass and to the wood that is kind of overlapping there just a little bit. And then I'm going to join those corners together that match up. Remember, I have a high and a low side to each one of my pieces of glass. So that is kind of what I'm joining together. That way it kind of creates this really cool zigzag pattern. So again, matching up that high side with the other high side, making sure that everything is flush and as tight as possible, and then working my way around until I have the very last part together. Now, this is still not very sturdy, so you definitely want to reinforce this. Go ahead and add your glue. Add everything together, hold it in place until it does glue together, and then you want to go ahead and flip this upside down. Do this very, very carefully. Once you've done that, you can then add a base. I chose not to paint my base. This is totally up to you. If you want to paint this piece, then by all means, please do. It is not going to be seen. You're going to cover it up with a lot of stuff. And again, totally your call. Once everything was dry, then I added in some of these Dollar Tree wood birch pieces. I also added in some moss and some Dollar Tree rocks and some succulents to create the perfect tabletop succulent garden. I am so happy with the way this looks on my coffee table. This is something that I can keep out all year round. I also think that this would look fantastic on the mantle or even on a bookshelf.